Hi all. So on Wednesday, UK Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting, announced that the government has formally banned puberty blockers for trans children. So this has made me really angry and disturbed for a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, this is basically the denial of healthcare to trans people under the age of 18, and it's going to make them go through a puberty which is going to change them permanently and which will not be in line with their gender identity, and it's going to cause them great distress and hardship for the future. Now, a lot of the papers are reporting that the UK government has banned puberty blockers, but they actually haven't. They've only banned puberty blockers for trans children. And I say only, I don't mean because it's less significant or less important. It's because other children who are going through precocious puberty are going to be allowed to still continue having puberty blockers. They've actually been prescribed puberty blockers for the past 15 years, I believe it is, without any ill effects. So all this nonsense, and it is nonsense, about puberty blockers being harmful to children's health, or even doctors not knowing if puberty blockers are harmful to children's health, it's a load of rubbish. It's absolute rubbish, because children who have precocious puberty, they have been on the blockers and there's no health issues. So it proves that blockers are totally safe. Now, what Wes Streeting has done is he's condemned those children, those trans children, to a lot of pain and suffering, from which they'll never recover for the rest of their lives. I mean, I went through the wrong puberty, and hence why I have a deep voice, why I have broad shoulders. There's a lot of things that I don't like about myself, and also make it impossible for me not to be read as trans by other people. And I think what this puberty blocker ban was all about was, and the people who pressurised the government into banning puberty blockers for trans children, what it was all about was making sure that trans children can never pass as, I say pass, I don't mean that. It's kind of like a controversial sort of term, but what I'm trying to say is that if a transphobe knows that if we get to the stage where you can't tell a trans woman from a cis woman, or a trans man from a cis man, etc., or a trans person from a cis person, then their arguments are going to fall flat, and they're not going to be able to police the trans community that much, because under the Gender Recognition Act of 2004, it's actually illegal for individuals or a body or organisation to pressurise a trans person into showing them their pre-amended birth certificate, or to revealing what their gender was assigned at birth. So I mean, so if you take that, and also the fact that a lot of trans people still, you wouldn't know they were trans unless they told you they were trans. I mean, with me, I'm trans because you hear my voice, you see the way I look. It's so obvious that I'm trans. And so if you had a kind of society growing where trans people were plentiful who weren't automatically identifiable as trans, that in fact is a transphobe's worst nightmare, because there's no distinguishing a trans person from a cis person, and to them that is their idea of hell, basically. And it also makes it a lot more difficult to discriminate against a trans person or to target them if you don't know if that person is trans or not. And it also, as well, in the case of children, I mean, a lot of the arguments used by transphobes, particularly against trans women, are that we haven't grown up as female. You know, we've been perceived as male, or we're still perceived as male to a certain extent as well, and we haven't been through the same conditioning that society places upon cis women. So therefore, we're really, inverted commas, men. We've had male privilege, that's what they try and say. But if you have a child that sort of transitions early, they can't even sort of say, oh, well, you were brought up as a boy to them, or you were brought up as a girl, etc., and use those sort of arguments against them, because that argument is irrelevant. They're just brought up as any other girl or boy, you know, and subject to the same amount of sexism and genderism as any other girl or boy. So they will not, in short, transphobes can't, it's much more difficult for them to other us if we're the earlier we transition, and the more that we're indistinguishable from other members of society. I mean, if you look different, sometimes it's a lot easier for bigots to actually target you. Hence why, for instance, when, like, if we talk about, for instance, if you come off the trans subject for a moment, and we talk about people who are Islamophobic, for instance, well, if they can see somebody who is visibly Muslim, like a woman wearing their hijab, then they target them more. Or if you see, for instance, if somebody doesn't like Jewish people and they see an Orthodox Jewish person, then they kind of tend to target them more because they look different, or they look, you know, they look sort of definitely Jewish or definitely Muslim, you know. So bigots kind of, for some reason, bigots tend to centre on people who are outwardly manifesting their identity. And I think that if some trans people can kind of blend with the rest of society, that is a transphobe's worst nightmare. And I'm not saying in any way that it's a bad thing to stand out. It's you do you know, you own your own identity, you know, and be proud of who you are. And if that involves showing the world who you are sort of physically, outwardly, then you go do it. If that involves it doesn't involve doing that, as long as you're still proud of who you are and your heritage and the tradition behind your community, and you support your community and you're not ashamed to be you, then that's a good thing. So that's what I think the ban on puberty blockers for trans children is about, really. And it also shows how much pressure and that the politicians and decision makers in government are, and how much pressure they're under, but from the transphobic media and these this tiny minority of obsessed bigots who are kind of have infiltrated the English establishment, and it is mostly the English establishment, even though the fact that we're still beholden to Westminster here in Wales and also in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and their laws, their transphobic laws, also are also sort of imposed on us as well here, which is one reason now where I'm becoming more and more of a kind of separatist, thinking that Wales should split from Westminster, you know, because we don't want these transphobic laws. And you know, a lot of people I've heard, like in Wales, maybe there's a little less transphobia, because a lot of the transphobia tends to be wound up and with English nationalism and that type of thing as well. You know, the rise of the far right in England in particular. And whilst I feel sorry for my English trans friends, and we should do everything we can to support people over the border, I think by kind of leaving Westminster and breaking up the UK, we can kind of help to diminish the damage or lessen the damage that the UK could do as a political unit, because then it's just going to be England sort of like, or the Westminster government shouting off, and they're not going to have as much power then, you know, and that's going to be a good thing, unfortunately, because I mean, if they've shown that they don't know how to use this power, and they're using it for things that are wrong, you know, like persecuting trans people. So we just have to sort of like call time on it, I think. So yeah, so please let me know what you think in the comments down below. I mean, I think personally that the ban on puberty blockers for trans children is just blatant discrimination, and it's absolutely outrageous. And yeah, so that's what my thoughts are anyway. So take care, everyone. And also, one thing I wanted to say as well is that although puberty blockers for trans children have been banned in the UK, I'm pretty sure that trans children, or some trans children, will be able to get their hands on them anyway, because there's going to be, hopefully, an underground network of people who are brave enough to risk everything to help trans children, to get them the puberty blockers. And even though it's against the law and they'll go to prison, and if they're trans, they will go to, for instance, a trans woman will go to a male prison where she stands elevated risk of sort of rape or you know, like transphobic assault. People will show up and help the community, and they will help the underdog, who in this case are trans people under the age of 18 at the moment, just like people did in, well, I bring it back to like talking about Hitler and the Nazis, but look, people in Nazi-occupied Europe, they sort of changed hands on my phone because my hand is shaking from holding the phone for so long, and I didn't intend to talk this long, but what I'm trying to say is that in Nazi-occupied Europe, you know, I mean, resistance networks, and within Germany itself, resistant networks kind of operated underground to help Jewish people and to help other people persecuted by the Nazis. You know, even at great risk to themselves, individuals did things that were absolutely heroic and risked their own lives and families to help people, because they felt that in a society which is wrong, which is evil, and an evil regime, actually breaking the law becomes the only moral option. So yeah, food for thought. So please do let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're a young trans person who's been denied puberty blockers, or you're a parent of a young trans person or guardian, my heart goes out to you. It really does, you know. So take care, everyone, and stay safe, and bye for now. Bye.